I just saw Megalopolis. Wow. It was like embarrassing sitting there watching that. I actually felt shame just being there witnessing that disaster of a movie. And to make it worse, insult to injury, I watched it right after Joker 2. So I just made the review for Joker 2. Spoiler, that movie was also bad. This movie was worse for sure, but man, what an unholy 1-2 combo that was. This was like a punch flurry that not even Mike Tyson could deliver, going back to back with Joker and then Megalopolis. So I took a shower before talking about Megalopolis because I know I'm going to get heated on this because it's just so weird. This movie had over $100 million budget. And I don't get why. I don't get it. I already made like a whole rant about that with like these inflated budgets, but this film in particular it's so stupid to have a budget that big because it's a movie devoid of a single element of a story. It has things that happen, sure, but it is such a fucking mess. This is a movie that smells of pretentiousness. It's very clear this wanted to be deeper than it is. This is a movie that wasn't made for any audience in particular. It was made for critics. It was made for people that love the smell of their own farts to pretend like they understand the subtle vicissitudes that the director was trying to convey. But in this film, it doesn't even work with that niche, because even critics don't like it. It's just not very good, like at all. It is a disjointed, like actual fever dream experience. So let's just dive into it. There's going to be spoilers, fair warning. This is a movie that I feel like it's almost impossible to spoil because there isn't really a movie here. It's a collection of random shit that happens. It's like a collection of Francis Ford Coppola's memories from dreams that he tries to piece together loosely here. Very similar to like how the Rick and Morty anime does it. Like this is the Rick and Morty anime with a $100 million budget. I'm also pretty sure every actor in here was just directed to be as weird as they possibly can. So Shia LaBeouf, for example, he's in this movie and he dials his like wackiness up to 11. So like in the very beginning of the movie, they're like going to this big press thing about something that they're opening, and Shia LaBeouf's there, and his uncle is also Caesar's uncle, and he's like, I heard you're doing the hanky pank with your sisters. Can you stop that? And Shia LaBeouf's like, no, I won't stop that. So he's like doing this, and then he like grabs the railing and he like kicks his feet up. He goes, and then he like puts himself in a dress in the next scene, like also still doing those mannerisms and stuff. And also Adam Driver as Caesar, someone I thought was supposed to be like this cavalier, like genius guy. He's kind of the same way. So at that same press event, he's there and he's giving a monologue, and he is actually a Reddit mod. So Caesar's character, I am 100% sure, is inspired by like the quintessential Reddit mod that everybody pictures in their head. The way he carries himself, the way he talks, he's always some of this. And like the way he speaks to people is so fucking cringe. Like actual Discord admin level shit. So like there's a scene where the mayor's daughter shows up and he talks to her. He's like, ugh, Jiminy Christmas. He doesn't say Jiminy Christmas, but he scoffs. He's like, ugh, you, of course, you've wandered into my quarters. I'd prefer if you weren't here. I don't like to dawdle with the riffraff. I prefer to carry myself in conversations with those that like to think, so we can have intellectual discussions on important subjects. So if you wouldn't mind excusing yourself from my abode, I would be much appreciative of that. Why don't you go see yourself back to the club and get out? And he says that, by the way. Now, that wasn't verbatim, but he literally says club like that. It's awful. It's terrible to listen to. But I will say, it is fun bad pretty often, actually. I did find myself audibly saying, what the fuck, with a smile on my face and giggling occasionally at how horrible what I was watching is. Because it's really shitty, but sometimes in an unintentionally entertaining way. It tries to be so profound and falls flat on its fucking face. So let's begin. I don't think the movie is dog shit out of the gate. In fact, I actually quite like the visuals in this film, like the style of it I think is interesting. But by the time it gets to the halfway point, you're already so lost in the sauce here that you have no clue what's happening. So it all just becomes kind of worthless anyway. But I do think there is a style here that is unique. However, the visuals really are hit or miss. There are times where it looks really good. Like, it seems like, hey, this is a big budget production. And then there's times where it actually looks like they filmed it at our warehouse in front of our green screen. Like, there are some of the worst green screen moments in here that I've seen in a modern film. Like, it makes some of DC's biggest stinkers for CGI look like award winners. I don't know what happened and why there's some incredible visuals here and then some absolute, like, Adobe After Effects first year attempt, like, visuals. I don't get it. So something definitely went awry in the pipeline here for the production, but overall, I do think the style is eye-catching. Now, the beginning of the film isn't super dog shit. It's not like Turbo Cheeks or anything. It actually is almost cohesive. They introduce our two main characters that we're going to be seeing a lot of. It's Adam Driver playing Caesar, who is like this genius architect who's found like the god particle basically called Megalon. And it's Giancarlo Esposito playing Cicero, who is the mayor, who does not like Caesar. They butt heads constantly. And the film, like, it's not like it's a mess because I'm too stupid to understand it. I know that's a lot of cope people like to try in a film like this, where they like stick their pinky out. The plebeians just simply couldn't understand this high art. What a shame. I understand it because I'm enlightened. That's not the case here. I actually think this movie is very easy to understand on the themes it's trying to get across in the beginning, where it actually had a semblance of a narrative. In the second half of the film, there's nothing. There's actually nothing. We'll get to that in a minute. It is a fucking battlefield of nonsense. But in the beginning, I think it's pretty clear. It's introducing characters that have different ideologies. So, like, there's a reporter who keeps fucking her way up the ladder, trying to get more and more power, more and more wealth. She has, like, a fling with Caesar. Caesar's somewhat of, like a playboy to a certain extent. He's, like, this genius, cavalier kind of guy. Cicero is really against what Caesar represents, which is change. He is trying to think about the future, whereas Cicero's focused on the present. And that's the big clash of ideals. So this is very clearly inspired by, like, the fall of Rome. They drill that home. They shove that down your fucking throat. Like, the location here is called New Rome. It's basically just New York, though. So the whole idea is the dreamer, the architect here, Caesar, wants to bring change. But the rich and powerful around him, they're pretty okay being stagnant and focusing more on, like, the present and just keeping people, like, occupied as opposed to getting ready for what comes next. Caesar has an uncle who's, like, the richest person in the fucking universe. His name's Hamilton, and he's beyond absurdly wealthy. So Caesar also has a lot of power, a lot of money, a lot of influence. And the whole idea is he wants to use the megalon particle to make megalopolis, which will be a utopia, which is all about the future and getting the next generation ready for what comes. And also, Caesar has a superpower. He can stop time. Not only can he stop time, he can fully manipulate it. He controls time. And you'd think that'd be like an important component of this story. It's not. He does it maybe 3 times. And he really only does it when he wants to watch a building fall once. And then the other 2 times he does it is to kiss a girl. Oh, and then he does it one more time where he just shows that he can do it. He never actually uses it for anything. It is completely worthless, meaningless. I don't even know why they bothered giving him a superpower, other than what it represents. So here's where we get to, again, the double meanings and shit that like to try and get woven in here unsuccessfully because the film's just very underwhelming. The idea, I believe, that they're trying to convey with Caesar stopping time is one that they do kind of like hammer into you at one point because his love interest comes in after he's lost this power due to self-doubt. She kind of explains that art, every piece of art, uses time, manipulates time, controls time. Music turns time into rhythm. Architecture freezes time in these buildings, this and that. So the idea here with his superpower isn't necessarily that has the ability to control time, even though he literally does. It's more about the representation that his vision, his art, is the architecture and the ability to stop time with his creation. Now, his love interest, the reason she even gets interested in him in the first place is she happens to see him stop time. She doesn't get stopped. Everyone else around him gets frozen in time. She doesn't. She's able to, like, process it and, like, wow, he can control time. Most people will be really impressed by that. And the idea here that they're trying to get across, I believe, is that she can see his artistic vision, and he is able to understand that she gets the vision, which is why he falls in love with her and her him. And this all would be fine and dandy if there was anything that comes from it. Like, they set up this shit, it's not that subtle, it's not very deep, it's all kind of like obvious, I think, for the most part, and they don't even do anything with it. It's just like a bunch of different fucking ideas that don't work together that get thrown in here. It's a waste of time. And it introduces so many plot elements that never play a role in this. So like the superpower, for example, it doesn't actually play a role in this at all. There's also a satellite that they introduce in the beginning that's about to like fall into the earth and maybe be a problem, but then they deem it's not that big of a deal because it's hitting somewhere kind of remote. And then eventually towards the end of the movie, here comes the satellite. It's changed course. It's going to hit New Rome directly. No. And then it hits New Rome, blows up like 3 buildings, and then it's never addressed again. Like, and then also there's a plot line where Caesar's wife died, and for some reason he was accused of murdering her. And Cicero, the mayor, was actually the DA at the time trying to pin murder on him. He was eventually acquitted of that. And then there's like this scene where he's buying flowers for his wife, except his wife's dead, so it's like kind of all in his head, but it shows like he still loved his wife. And I thought that was going to be a big component of this, but it's not. Turns out like he wasn't the best husband really, and his wife ended up like driving off a bridge and dying, and then something mysteriously happened to the body, and they accuse Caesar of like taking the body, except he didn't take the body. It was actually some kind of big cover-up. And then Cicero, when he finds out that Caesar's like, you know, impregnated his daughter, he's like, listen, Caesar, I love my daughter, and here's a red envelope that has my confession about your wife's body, which is never addressed again. Also, his wife's body never mattered in the plot. Also, his wife never mattered in the plot. The biggest thing that happened with his wife is where he like really offhandedly mentions that he found Megalon by trying to bring his wife back to life, and then that's it. Then he goes right back to making out and impregnating the mayor's daughter. All of these things get introduced, but don't actually mean anything or do anything. Like, there's a whole scene where the reporter that was fucking Caesar ends up marrying his uncle for his money, and they throw this big wedding at a coliseum where they have like wrestlers wrestling, and then they have this girl do a musical number, and she's like the virgin that New Rome sponsors. Like, she's a New Rome enforced virgin. So during this wedding celebration, there's a moment where she has a musical number, and then it leads to people like donating money for her virginity fund or something. Like, I don't even know what they're bidding on. Like, they start bidding. It gets up to like $100 million just to give her money for being a virgin. Like, it makes no sense. And then all of a sudden, Shia LaBeouf's in this movie, acting like an absolute crazy person, which is fine, I guess, but it doesn't do anything. He's just like weird for the sake of being weird. It doesn't actually do anything for the plot. But anyway, Shia LaBeouf comes up with this nefarious plot to try and like hurt Caesar, so he deepfakes a video of him taking that girl's virginity, except she was underage. So then he starts to like get tried for like statutory rape, except then it turns out that the girl's 23, and then like the charges immediately get dropped. And then the whole thing with that girl, Caesar, the virgin, whatever, none of that ever gets addressed outside of the 10 minutes that became a plot point. It's like Francis Ford Coppola completely forgot it was even written in here. Like, it's just this complete nonsensical fucking dumpster fire of things that happen. And I can't even say happen, because a lot of things don't even really happen. Like, almost nothing happens. It is impossible to piece together what the actual plot is past the halfway point. And I'd say a little before the halfway point, it goes completely unhinged and off the rails. It falls apart, and it was barely even held together in the first place. But at least there was a semblance of where things were going. But then it just becomes indecipherable. It's like Finnegan's Wake visually. Like, just complete gibberish. So, like, the plot's moving forward. Eventually, like, Shia LaBeouf's character, Claudio, he starts leading a movement that's, you know, trying to push Caesar out, push the mayor out. He's leading the charge and like, getting into politics. Things aren't going super well for Caesar, who gets shot by a child as like an assassination attempt that Claudio was behind, but he survives because Megalon got fused with his skull, which regrew his whole brain and his whole face. So like, it's literally a god particle. It's like a magic particle that can just do anything, including building utopia. The girl who married the uncle then starts having sex with Claudio. So like, there's this whole uncomfortable scene. The girl is played by Aubrey Plaza, by the way. And so Aubrey Plaza goes up to Shia LaBeouf And she's like, your grandfather, we need to steal his money. You're a naughty boy, aren't you? And he's like, yes, Auntie Wow. Her name is Wow Platinum. That's the character's name, Wow Platinum. And this scene goes on for way too long, an uncomfortably long period of time, where she's like, does my ass look good in this? And he's like, yeah. And she said, no, yes, Auntie Wow. Say that. And he's like, yes, Auntie Wow. And then she like shoves her whole pussy in his face, and he starts eating her out, saying, thanks, Auntie Wow. And then she's like, do you want to fuck me? And he's like, yes, Auntie Wow. And then she goes over her plan to get Claudio to become the interim CEO to force out Hamilton so they can have all of his infinite wealth. So then they're together, and then they do execute that plan, and it kicks Hamilton out somehow. And then Hamilton has a heart attack, except he's faking it. So he's like in bed, and Claudio and Wow Platinum pay him a visit. And a lot of people, I think, talked about this scene because someone mentioned it on stream like 2 days ago. So this is the scene where Hamilton's in bed and they're around him, and he's still pretending to be like injured to a certain extent from the heart attack. So he says, one more thing. Do you like my boner? Because there's like something sticking up in the sheets. And like, do you like my boner? And then he takes the sheet off, and it's a little bow and arrow, like Cupid's bow and arrow. So he shoots a little arrow, which hits Aubrey Plaza in the heart, instantly killing Wow Platinum. And then he shoots 2 more arrows into the ass of Shia LaBeouf as he runs away. And he says, it's the closing bell, you Wall Street slut. Something like that before firing the arrow, killing Aubrey Plaza. It's bad. Like, it's bad, but like I said, that's kind of like fun shitty. Do you like my boner? Like, I mean, it got a little laugh out of me, the absurdity of it. Maybe that's the whole point of the movie, is just to be so incomprehensibly absurd that you're supposed to find enjoyment of it. But you're not really laughing with the movie, you're kind of laughing at it. Because it's a disaster. This movie is a disaster. So, like, even Megalopolis itself, what it is, like the utopia that Caesar is building, it's a fucking amusement park. He is literally making an amusement park. So you see Megalopolis at the end, like, he gets it made and everyone moves to Megalopolis, and somehow it's supposed to save the world, and somehow the mayor, who's been really adamant against it, thinking that Caesar's like this evil bad guy, this can never work, whatever, he ends up going there and he's like, wow, this place is fucking incredible. Wow, look at that. Yeah, this is going to save the world. But shake my hand and tell me that you're going to build diligently or something. He's like, yeah, of course. And the place is actually like little roller coasters. So you ride around on Pokeballs on these golden highways. Oh, actually, they're kind of like the little pods out of Jurassic World. You ride around on those in little golden highways, like tiny little highways, and all of the buildings are like seashells. It actually kind of reminds me of the concept art for Akon City. You remember that like scam Akon tried to run? It actually kind of looks like that. I think they took design elements from Akon City for Megalopolis. It's so silly. Like, somehow this is the utopia? This is what saves the world? Like, what? It was so dumb. Man, I could go on and on about, like, the insanity of this film. I just can't believe this got made, and I am even more stunned that this had over a $100 million budget. What a waste of money. So, I know it's not doing well financially, so everyone's already made the joke calling it megaflopolis, but man, it really is. This shit sucks. Like, I don't get it, what they were going for. Like, I get in the beginning what they tried to set up with, like, the pretty obvious imagery and, like, the ideologies that they introduced. Like, I get that, but then it just doesn't even follow any of that. Like, it doesn't even go down that path. It's just a complete mess. So, is Megalopolis worth watching? No. But if you like fun bad movies, this might be one to stream when it comes out. I think it is fun bad. I think it's more oftentimes enjoyably shitty than it is boringly shitty. Like, there was never a moment in the film where I was like, man, this is like unbearable to sit through. I was always like, okay, this is kind of dragging, but I know there's going to be something so stupid that it'll probably like breathe life back into this. And I was usually right. It is fun bad pretty often. So if you like shittily entertaining films, this one might be for you. But I would not recommend paying money to go see it under any circumstance. That's about it. See ya.